You ever stop and think about where our ideas of body and soul even come from? I mean, they feel so fundamental, right? Well, it turns out early Christian thinkers, they didn't just invent these concepts. They were working with a really complex blueprint they inherited, one they ended up completely transforming. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to explore that blueprint and see how it literally shaped how we think about being human.
I mean, it's the big one, isn't it? What makes us us? Our bodies? Our souls? Something else? For centuries, this question was everything in philosophy and religion. And the answers they came up with back then, way more complex and varied than you'd think. And believe me, they still echo in how we see ourselves, right now, today.
Right? Think of it this way. The ancient world, especially around the Mediterranean, was like this huge, chaotic marketplace of ideas. I mean, you had Greek philosophy over here, all these different Jewish traditions over there, and then these new spiritual movements popping up everywhere. And right in the middle of it all, you have guys like St. Paul. They weren't in a bubble. They were in a constant conversation, borrowing ideas, debating others, and in the end, forging something completely new. So, to really get a handle on this, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the big picture, the cultural crosscurrents. Then we'll dive into four huge influences: Philo, Rabbinic Judaism, Greek philosophy, and Gnosticism. And we'll wrap it all up by seeing how these different streams of thought came together to create the Christian synthesis. All right, section 1. The big thing to get here is that early Christian thinking about what it means to be human, it wasn't a monologue. Not at all. It was this lively, sometimes really heated debate with all the major ideas floating around. You see, these other schools of thought, they provided the very language, the very concepts that Christianity had to wrestle with to figure out its own identity. Okay, so our first stop brings us to this absolutely crucial figure, Philo of Alexandria. Now, Philo was a Jewish philosopher living in, a major hub of Greek culture. And what he did was just brilliant. He managed to weave together Jewish scripture and Greek philosophy. And in doing so, he created this really powerful framework that Christian thinkers would have to deal with for centuries to come. So, this is where it gets really interesting. Philo looks at the two creation stories in Genesis and says, wait a minute, these are talking about two different kinds of man. On one hand, you have the celestial man from Genesis 1. This isn't a physical person. Think of it more like a perfect, non-physical blueprint, an idea in the mind of God. But then you get the earthly man from Genesis 2. This is the one we know, formed from the dust, a real person made of both a body and a soul. And Philo is not subtle about this distinction. He says, there is an enormous difference between the man molded now and the one created earlier in the image of God. I mean, that's a huge statement. He's drawing a massive line between the ideal blueprint and the physical reality. And this idea, this powerful split between the ideal and the material, well, it's going to become a massive theme in Western thought. He even took it a step further and created this kind of ladder of human consciousness. So at the very bottom, you've got the common man. This person has what Philo calls a bare intellect, just a basic, unorganized consciousness. Then you move up a level to the true man. This person has a reflective consciousness, they use reason. And then at the very top, the pinnacle, is the man in image. This is the ideal, holy person who perfectly reflects that original celestial model. It's a clear roadmap for growth, right? Intellectually and spiritually. All right, so that was Philo's very philosophical take. Now let's switch gears and look at another Jewish tradition that had a totally different view of the first human. See, while Philo saw Adam number 1 as this abstract, ideal model, Rabbinic and apocalyptic Judaism, oh no. They pictured a glorious Adam before the fall, a real, physical being of just incredible magnificence and power. In this view, Adam wasn't just some guy made from mud, he was a being of pure light and glory. He had cosmic stature. I mean, his dignity was supposedly so immense that some traditions say Satan's fall happened because he refused to bow down to Adam. Think about that. So from this point of view, the whole human story becomes about trying to get back to that original, glorious state that we lost. Okay, let's turn to the absolute intellectual powerhouse of the ancient world, Greek philosophy. For thinkers like Plato, the answer to that big question, what is a human, was simple, but it was also completely radical. And it was this: you are not your body. The key to understanding this is one Greek word, nous. It means intellect or mind. But for the Greeks, this wasn't just a part of you, it was you. The nous was your divine spark. It was your true self, your immortal essence. Everything else was just extra. And this quote from Plato, I mean, it doesn't get much clearer than this. He says, since man is neither the body nor the body-soul composite, it remains that he is the soul alone. Boom. There it is. You are not your body. You're not even a mix. You are your soul. And the body? It's just a temporary vehicle.
So, if that's true, if your real self is your divine mind, then what's the point of life? Well, for the Greeks, the goal was something called homoiosis. It literally means becoming like God. The idea was to train your intellect, to discipline your body's distractions, and to become as similar as possible to the divine source your soul came from. All right, our next stop is with a group called the Gnostics. And if you think these ideas about the body being secondary are intense, well, the Gnostic took it to a whole other level. See, if Plato saw the body as maybe a temporary vessel, the Gnostics saw it as an evil prison, a cage.
So for the Gnostics, here's the deal. Your true self is a divine spark of light from a perfect higher realm. But, and this is the tragic part, that spark has fallen. It's become trapped inside an evil, material body in a broken material world that was created by some lesser, maybe even evil god. So for them, life isn't about growth, it's a cosmic rescue mission to get that spark back home. And this chart here really puts the Gnostic view in sharp contrast with the emerging Christian one. Just look at that bottom row, role of body. For someone like Paul, the body is a vessel for transformation. But for the Gnostic, it's a prison, to be escaped. And that right there is the fundamental difference, transformation versus escape. On top of all that, the Gnostics had this really elitist view of humanity. They basically split everyone into three types. First, you have the spiritual people, the pneumatic. They were the elite who had that divine spark and were destined to be saved by getting secret knowledge, or gnosis. Then you had the psychic or soulish people in the middle. Their fate was kind of uncertain. And at the bottom were the hylic, the material people. In the Gnostic view, they were just doomed, hopelessly lost, destined to be destroyed right along with the physical world. Okay, so let's pull back. We're in this crowded, chaotic marketplace with all these powerful, competing ideas about what a human is. So what did the early Christians do? Did they just pick one? Nope. They did something way more interesting. They created a totally unique and, honestly, revolutionary synthesis. So let's just do a super quick recap. You've got Philo and the Greeks saying the real you is your intellect, your nous. You've got Rabbinic Judaism saying we're trying to reclaim a lost, glorious image. You've got the Gnostics saying we're a trapped spirit. And what's the one thing you see over and over? The body is always secondary. It's a lesser vessel, or at worst, an evil prison. And this, right here, is the crucial turning point. Early Christian thinkers, especially Paul, they took the language that was already out there, words like psyche and pneuma, but they poured a completely new meaning into them. They took a look at the Platonic and Gnostic idea that the body was basically a mistake, a prison you needed to escape from, and they flat out rejected it. And this is what was so revolutionary. A new vision emerged. A human being isn't some ghost trapped in a machine. No, a human is a unified whole, body, soul, and spirit, all integrated. The body isn't trash to be thrown away. It's part of the package deal, something to be redeemed and transformed. This was a radical, powerful yes to the goodness of the entire person God created. Which brings us right back to today, and a final question for you. Think about it. We still use this language, body, mind, spirit. When you really think about who you are, deep down, which of these ancient blueprints feels most true? Do you see yourself as a rational soul, like the Greeks, a trapped spirit, like the Gnostics, or a unified whole, like the early Christians? You know, the incredible debate these thinkers started all those centuries ago? It's a conversation we're all still having.